Historically, the shield is one of the oldest and most widespread forms of personal defense. Britannica notes that shields were used for hunting before they were used in a war, and pictorial evidence already shows Sumerian infantry fighting shield to shield by about 2450 BCE. Over the long run, the main pattern is simple. As body armor became more complete, shields usually became smaller or more specialized. Shields were used by everyone, from ordinary infantry to kings and princely bodyguards. In the ancient Mediterranean, shield's design was tightly tied to battlefield tactics. The Greek hoplon was a convex round shield about 3 feet, so 90 centimeters across, made of composite wood and bronze, carried by a forearm strap and a hand loop, to help make the hoplite phalanx possible. Roman practice then moved from an oval republican shield to the imperium scutum, a large, cylindrical, leather-clad wooden shield that covered much of the body. In both cases, the shield was not just a cover, it was part of how formation fought. In early medieval Europe, shields were commonly oval or round, built from light, tough wood covered with leather and fitted with a central grip and an external boss or umbo to protect the hand. By the 11th and 12th centuries, mounted warriors favored the large kite shield. Britannica describes it as nearly two-thirds of the owner's height, which makes sense when mail still left many gaps. At the height of the Middle Ages, the nice triangular shield was painted with identifying symbols. By the 14th century, improved crossbows could pierce shields and mail, and as plate armor spread, the small convex targe became less necessary in the battlefield use and more associated with tournaments. Late medieval and early modern shields diverse rather than simply vanishing. The pavis was an oblong, often curved shield used by infantry, archers, and especially crossbowmen. Some were large enough to cover a crouching man, and some could stand on their own with a prop. The buckler was the opposite extreme, a small, one-handed shield for close combat or civilian defense, and some examples were deliberately shaped to trap an opponent's blade. In Scotland, the Highland targe remained standard battle equipment until the 1746. Outside Western Europe, shields also remained important. Ottoman shields could use wound and wrapped cane under a steel boss, and Indian dals were often made from very hard hide, sometimes preferred steel. Materials. The biggest misconception is that a real shield was usually a slab of metal. Most historical shields were composite objects. Surviving examples show that clearly a Swiss pavis is wood, linen, pigskin, gesso, and pigment. A Bohemian pavis is wood, leather, gesso, silver foil, and polychromy. A Wrexham buckler combines steel rings and boss with wood and leather backing. A Bohemian targe is wood, leather, iron, gesso, and paint. A Highland targe is wood, leather, brass, horn, and textile. Fully metal shields clearly existed too, especially later round shield targets and some bucklers, while other regions kept using hide or cane very effectively. The Metropolitan Museum's Indian shield is an example, is simply hide with copper or bronze fittings, and it notes that thick hide may be among the oldest shield material of all. Ottoman shield construction could center on cane with a steel boss stabilizing the build. So the real material story is not wood first, metal later, but a long coexistence of wood, hide, leather, cane, fabric, gesso, and metal. Effectiveness. In use, shields were exceptionally effective because they were active protection. Large shields helped make up an incomplete body armor and were especially valuable against missiles and in close formations. Pavises were good enough that crossbowmen could reload behind them. Small shields traded coverage for speed. Bucklers were poor as arrow stoppers, but excellent for hand protection, quick parries, and sword work. Their weaknesses was also obvious. A shield protects only what it actually covers. Once plate harnesses gave much better all-around coverage, and once stronger crossbows and then firearms raised the penetration problem, the ordinary battlefield shield lost ground in Western Europe. So the answer to who used shields is basically almost everybody at some point. Cimmerian infantry, Greek hoplites, Roman legionnaires, early medieval spearmen, Norman and high medieval knights, 15th century crossbowmen, Renaissance soldiers with targets or bucklers, civilians and duelists using sword and shield buckler system, Scottish Highlanders, and many non-European hunters and warriors using hide or cane shields. The shield type usually tells you the role: big shield for formation or missile protection, medium shield for general mounted or foot fighting, and tiny shield for close combat. Maintenance was a bigger issue than movies suggest. The MET's conservation work on the Behemoth shield describes wood cores covered with canvas or animal skin, multiple gesso and paint layers, buckling, flaking, repeating repainting, and silver leaf that blackens unless sealed with varnish. The Royal Armoury's Pavis still preserves its wooden grip and leather binding, but its original suspension bar is missing. Taken together, that evidence strongly suggests that real shield upkeep meant keeping them dry, protecting paint and varnish, replacing straps or grips, and periodically refinishing damaged surfaces. Some lesser known shields of history. As I mentioned before, a pavis is a large, often rectangular convex shield used in the late Middle Ages, 14th to 16th centuries, to protect archers and crossbowmen. A lantern shield is a small shield combined with a lantern used during the Italian Renaissance, 15th and 16th century Italy, especially for nighttime duels. A number of specimens survive. Their defining feature is a small circular shield, a buckler combined with a lantern or a hook from which to hang a lantern, intended to blind the opponent at night or in duels fought at dawn. Some elaborate examples might incorporate gauntlets, spikes, sword blades, and also a mechanism to alternatively darken or release the light of the lantern. The most peculiar example is now kept at the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, made in 1540. And lastly, a dueling shield, often called a long shield or a thrusting shield, is a specialized 15th to 16th century, primarily German weapon designed for judicial duels. It acts both as defense and offense, often featuring spikes or hooks used to shield the body while enabling simultaneously attacking. It functions similarly to a half sword or a spear or a Hungarian shield. As a closure, the short version is that shield history is really the history of changing trade-offs. Round and oval shields suited spear and sword formations, kite and triangular shields suited mounted mail, armored warriors, pavises suited missile troops, bucklers suited close fencing, and smaller late targets, targes, or regional shields survived, where there's still tactical sense. Shields did not disappear because they were useless. They disappeared where better armor and more powerful missile weapons made their old balance of coverage, weight, and convenience less worthwhile.